goal is deconstructing without departing. We want to travel back in time, let people tell their stories of the things they've walked through, so that we can help people who are moving forward in time without making mistakes. It's okay to ask questions. Take your time.
All right. Well, we are trying to do our first live. I cannot tell if it is actually live on YouTube. So if you are...
Everything is saying it's live right now.
Everything says it. So let's see. I see. Okay. So Will was able to comment from YouTube, or the church split. So welcome to Renovating Faith and our first live stream. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy New Year. Happy whatever you happen to be celebrating. I'm excited. We've got Will Hess, who was our first guest, back on the show today. So if you are here on YouTube, please go ahead and type a comment, something, let me know. And if not, Will and I are just gonna have a good time talking, so that'll be good. Although it does say no one's watching, so cool. No one can see my rambling yet. I don't know, is there like a protocol? Like, do we share the YouTube link on Facebook or something?
I mean, I always usually share it before we get started, but generally speaking,
I literally signed up for StreamYard yesterday, and during some downtime at work, so I didn't even see the option to schedule it until like 5 minutes before we hit live. So
there's all sorts of little tricks, but you'll get it. I mean, it's all part of the learning curve. Plus, once you go down from being live, it will process, it'll post to your channel like a normal video, and you can promote it that way. So it's all right. So either people can catch us live or they can catch us after the show.
That's right. So we do have the comments up, so if anyone is watching, that'll be fun. We'll be able to see it. But yeah, so it's fun. We're gonna we don't really have a plan. We have a few things we kind of want to talk about. But my background is obviously audiovisual, but I do mostly pre-produced podcast stuff, which is why we haven't done a live stream yet, and church audio. So Will, when we were talking about possibly live streaming this, he goes like on StreamYard, and I was like, I don't know what's StreamYard. So
well, it's only the best thing ever when it comes to live streaming. It's funny because you and Brian both would commiserate on this area that where both of you guys like to do pre-recorded things. You guys like to, edit, make sure it's all good. Brian's very much of that vein. And I know that the YouTube algorithm has a tendency to really like live streams. And so I'm pushing for the live stream route while we're doing kind of, him and I are kind of doing this thing where we divide and conquer. He does a lot of pre-recorded videos, and now I am going to probably do, I think, a pre-recorded series on LGBT and sexual issues in the church, but we'll see how that goes. But I'll be tackling that one personally, and that's just because I work at a church. Therefore, me pushing the biblical sexual ethic is very much accepted in my line of work, but Brian works in a secular company. And so he's like, I'll let you handle that. And that way, if he doesn't agree with me on something, or he does agree with me on something, he's not actually attached to me, where someone at his very, possibly progressive company would be upset.
Absolutely. Well, that can be important. And there was actually might have it here. I can do this now because I don't have a green screen. I don't know if I sent you. You put out a post asking for resources. My wife went to the I keep wanting to say unapologetic. That was your thing.
Kind of. I stole it from other people's things.
I can't remember the name of the conference now, but it was Frank Turek, Elisa Childers, and somebody else that I can't remember. Anyway, and so she got some Frank Turek books, and I think this book, Correct, Not Politically Correct, actually deals with a lot of those topics. Mike Winger has a great series on that too, specifically homosexual, but I'm really excited. I always like your takes because you're not as gracious as Mike. and I like that.
I
love
you like
my-
me because you just said, "Will I like you because you're mean?" Like, well,
You
so
cut the
I'm-
crap. So
okay. So, like, I kind of talked about this a little bit on my live stream yesterday,
did.
which is my methodology a little bit. So, it's kind of funny. Brian and I were talking, like, it depends. People's first impression of me can very much change depending if they meet me just out and about, where I'm just kind of being my goofy, nerdy self versus on something like the podcast or preaching, where my passion tends to really come through. And I guess really it's just because I get kind of tired of people not kind of cutting the crap and just kind of getting to the point. It doesn't mean you have to be mean about it. There are some people who cut the crap and are mean. But then there's I don't think there's anything wrong with being direct. And I think we should be okay with being direct and pointed. And also when you're being direct and pointed, it makes it a lot harder to misunderstand you. And I've noticed that if you're too gracious, people might be like, so are you really against it? Do you really think it's a bad thing? Do you think it's a good thing? I can't really tell because it's so nice. As opposed to just sometimes it's important to call it out. Now, other times, of course, like, and that's why I want to pre-record it, because I think there's things that deserve to be punchy, and I think there are things that deserve grace, and I don't want to get steam rolling and then accidentally forget to match a certain tone or say the wrong words. Anyway, that's a lot of words for me to say that, but
well,
yes.
I actually watched your live stream this morning on my way to and from a job site. So that was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. And I was really actually disappointed by one thing. You guys were talking about casting down idols, and you mentioned, a lot of the commands to do it, but you left out obviously what I think is the most obvious example in the Bible of someone doing that. And that was Gideon. He literally cut down his father's idol.
That's true.
And then when people walked up to him, like, wanted to kill him, his dad's like, no. He's like, are you a better revenge taker than God? If Baal's God, let him handle it. Like, and it was so funny to me. Like, you talked about how the Satanists, their code is like, don't give your opinion to anyone. But then, like, okay, did I ask for your opinion on whether or not I should cut down your idol?
Right.
But you're giving it.
Yes, and for those who are wondering, who might watch this later, I did a stream on the Church of Satan not being an actual religion due to everything that happened with Michael Cassidy throwing it down and decapitating the idol. So that's what we're talking about there. But I suppose we should probably kind of move on to talk about Christmas a little bit.
Well, Christmas is pagan, though, so it works.
It is not pagan.
I know.
Bunch of nonsense.
We had a great interview last week celebrating Hanukkah with Brad Vasquez from Alternate Media. And I know that's a big thing that they've had to tackle, is whether or not Christmas is pagan. They've gone over that. And there's a lot of conversation both ways. And we, of course, I do recommend the and this is not a plug for Alternate Media because we're here to plug the Church Split today. But the playlist, if you can find it on our channel, Deck the Halls with Dogmatism was really good. They as best they could, I think they pulled out their position and just laid out the timeline. So I do enjoy that. Michael Jones with Inspiring Philosophy has a couple of really good ones that just came out, and he's kind of on the opposite side of them. So if you want to hear the pros and cons and decide that for yourself, go for it. But today,
my general concept is this: if it's that controversial, where there is a large group of people who say, like, after deep historical study, the conclusion is a definitive no, it is not pagan. There's a group of people who are trying to assert that it is. If it's that wildly, like, contested, you're probably pretty safe in assuming that it's not cut and dry for everyone, and therefore you can go ahead and do it because it's probably not, or at least not so overtly that it causes some major Christian problems. But I don't even think it is. I think it's. There's a tendency in the religious sphere, and everyone knows I love Brad and Seamus. They're my bros. Love them to death, but doesn't mean we agree on everything. But there's a tendency in the religious sphere to go crazy on comparing everything to paganism. And I try to be careful not to do that. There are some times where the comparison is appropriate and sometimes it's not. So,
well, I mean, gosh, you had Berean Holiness on a little bit ago, and I actually just finished that interview as well. And, she was talking about how certain groups believe that the wedding ring is tied to paganism. I'm like, good gosh, it's wrong to want to advertise that I'm taken and I'm loyal to my wife. Like, that's
right.
ungodly.
Well, symbols change over time, depending on culture. And just look at, okay, so earlier before I came here, I was working and editing more of my manuscript for the book that I'm working on. And one of the things we talk about is sacrifices. Mm-hmm. And in our modern world, we think of sacrifice as in giving up something to gain a benefit, usually of something else. And we usually when we think of ancient world sacrifices, our focus is around violence, right? But the violence or the killing or the slaughter or the blood, where really in the ancient world was mostly about the preparation, about the worship and the giving and all these other aspects. And like the killing was more of a means to an end. Yep. So there's a lot of things where over time, cultural symbols can change and other things can come in. It doesn't make them, and sometimes it can make us reach wrong conclusions. Yeah. But it's just important to just, understand that. So, all right.
Absolutely. Let's move on from the rabbit trails. Although one more plug about Will's book, I'm very excited for it. You shipped it off to someone. You gave an update recently. You said somebody you were really hoping would want to look at it is actually looking at it and analyzing it.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes, Dr. Matt Mouzakis with Expedition 44. They're on YouTube. Their channel is larger than James White's, and Dr. Will Ryan there.
I can't talk. Everybody's channel's larger than mine, so
yeah. Well, so it's bigger than James White's, and it's bigger than most Christian YouTubers. And it's funny because they like record in like a garage where they work on Jeeps by a shooting range, for crying out loud. It's really funny. Like once in a while when you're listening, you'll hear like pot shots in the background. It's funny.
That's amazing.
But they are
oh, you must get that too.
Yeah. Evansville, our pot shots are different though. They're not at a shooting range, they're at people. So
this has gone way off the rails.
Yes. But Dr. Mouzakis is looking at it. He's already commented in the document, and he's given me other resources to look into, other resources to use. So basically what I did is I had a complete manuscript, mostly complete, I should say, manuscript. And then I went back to the drawing board in certain areas, and now I'm going back and re-editing a lot of parts. So it has put me behind what I wanted to, but it's for the better.
So we joked about this several months ago. Is this going to be like a Tolkien thing where you want to do it in one book, but it ends up being 3?
No, this will be one book. Awesome. It'll just be 700 pages. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I have the Lord of the Rings right up here. So
no, I do plan to do this in one work, and I want it to be digestible for people. So some of the things I'm doing is I am, instead of waxing eloquently about one topic for like 30 pages, I will do a blurb, like do a quick paragraph, and then I'll footnote someone who explores that thought much deeper. Okay. And the point is here is to just kind of, because what I want to do is I want to keep as an overview for people to research, to like look and do an overview, and then give them the resources to go look at it deeper if they'd like. Yeah. And there's certain things I get really deep in, and certain things I'm just like, okay, this is the important concept to take away from this moving forward. Yeah. Otherwise, when you're dealing with the atonement, there's a reason why the atonement topic alone does not have a single volume to work in. Like that kind of presents to you a single thing. And it's because there are so many threads connected to it between covenants, like beliefs, like what is a covenant, what is all attached to that, what are the Old Testament sacrifices, what's the typology we see in Jesus Christ, how does even sin and purification and that work. There's so much to unpack that each one of those topics could be its own book. Yep. So that's why it's quite the challenge to do what I'm trying to do, and it's becoming a big project. So anyway.
It's lots of fun. I've enjoyed watching you walk through this, and of course I don't know that a lot of people know Will. When he started this, it was a blog, and then we talked about putting it in a book, and he started putting that together, and then he added 3 to 4 people in to kind of consult, and we could see the manuscript unfolding and watch it grow, and people would comment and read through, and I just kept my mouth out of it. I was like, I just want to see how this comes together. And I'm really hoping, of course, now that you're meeting all these big people, my initial goal is like, I'll do the editing. I'm married to an English major. I like deep theologians. I strive to be one, but I love things that are at the layman level. So I've tried not to read because I'm like, I want to make sure when it's all said and done and people are tired of looking at it, we can come in with a pair of fresh eyes and say, yes, this is at a pretty layman level. Like you're a par under the complexity of Lewis, like.
Well, and that's kind of the goal. Now it does get technical but
Yeah.
sometimes it has to. But like I try to make sure that that's few and far between, and that when I do it in a very simple term. So yeah, it started off that way where it was me and a buddy were kind of working through a blog series, and then over time he added some thoughts, and then I got some friends to kind of look at, like you said, to kind of look over it and give me some new fresh ideas and sources. Yeah. And then basically my friend, he was way too busy to actually work on it because he has like 1,000 children and just had twins. And then I was just like, hey, man, do you mind if I just take over this project? And because he had written like a chapter, like a section of a chapter, I should say. And so, of course, I didn't want to like cut him out, but at the same time, there's a lot of work to be done. So I've since like re-edited his entire section. It just kind of built up. So there's a lot of people who deserve to be acknowledged in the work. It is my work. I have put all of it together, and I'm the one who has written everything mostly in it, besides a few parts. Joshua Sherman there's one part that's definitely written by Joshua Sherman by a good chunk of the margin. And that is because he was trying to say something. I was like, well, can you like type up a few thoughts on this to kind of get me an idea of what you want me to say? And then he does.
And you left it.
Yeah. And he writes this whole thing. I was like, that's amazing. I am actually going to add to that. And pretty much kept it the way he had it. So I will be doing that in the acknowledgement sections, but there's really, but I'd say 98% of it, was pretty much all typing away.
All right. Well, we are 17 minutes into this, and I think we should probably actually get to the topic we wanted to talk about, which is Christmas.
Yes.
And the end of the year. So, obviously this time of year, so many people have a lot going on. You got family time, you're going to be seeing people. And so maybe let's talk a little about Christmas in the light of renovation and change. We both came from independent Baptist backgrounds. Now, fortunately, like most of my family has moved out of that, but I know a lot of people, especially within your world in the church split group, and actually, shameless plug for the group, Rejected to Accepted. If you're looking for a group of people who have dealt with fundamentalist legalism from any denomination, you've dealt with spiritual abuse, church abuse, whatever it is, go check out that group. But, you got a lot of people right now in our circles who maybe they have to go see family and it's going to be uncomfortable. Have you ever experienced that in your family? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, definitely. My family, there's a lot of baggage. There's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. There's been a lot of drama in the family, and so I definitely know the difficulty of what it's like to be around family during the holidays. And I'm not just referring to my family. I'm talking like extended family as well, like my wife's family and stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of difficulty during this time of year for some people who. Some people are just estranged from their family. Luckily for us, like we were always welcome around the holidays, but Callie and I always chose just not to do anything with anyone on the holidays, just because, my parents are divorced and a lot of drama in the family there. So it was like, well, if we chose one, we'd hear about it from the other, and we didn't want it. And we're just like, I don't want to inculcate my holiday where I am trying to remember the birth of Jesus Christ with a lot of drama. He said he brought peace. It's all about peace on earth. And I feel like I'm bringing chaos in my life there, which is like why we always got together with family around Christmas, but we never did it on Christmas. Like certain people, they spend all day traveling, but even growing up, like my dad's understanding of it, because that's how my dad was. Like, he was like, dude, his parents were divorced and all that. And he's like, we just stay home because we want it to be peaceful. And we do the same thing. So, kind of the idea is like, just find peace where you're at and enjoy the peace and quiet. Like I could always do for another peaceful and quiet day.
Yeah, honestly. So with the move, you guys had a little bit of a lull in content, and then you got moved and Brian got settled and everything. And now you guys are I used to pride myself on staying caught up with the church split. I'm behind. I have not watched so many videos, and I'm like, you know what? I think this was a bad move, because now no one's going to be able to stay caught up on everything you're doing. And I know you like micromanage your time, and it's kind of a goal for me, but it drives my wife nuts when I try. We had to go to a car dealership today to we've had a car for 6 months, been having problems. It's literally been sitting in the parking lot. And finally a dealer was like, hey, we think we know what's going on. And long story short, I had to drive it 40 minutes to a dealership in a couple towns over. And I'm like trying to get back before the stream. And I was like, well, we're going to be running just a few minutes behind. Let's get this rolling. And it's been a whole thing. And it's a stressful time of year, right? And I think that's so awesome. You know, it's such a good reminder that he came to bring peace. He came to bring hope. And yes, scripture says he came to bring a sword. You know, but that's kind of a different context than Christmas.
Well, I mean, the very concept of Emmanuel is, you know, God with us. The idea is that peace is here, peace on earth, goodwill toward men. And that's where a lot of people get it wrong. You know, they get this weird idea of an angry God in the sky when it's really no. He had
goodwill was not a prophecy about you. Just don't
right. Darn. I mean, are you sure? I can't read that anachronistically. No, but like having goodwill toward one another is really important. That there's peace and the covenant of peace is very clear what Christ brought, which was a covenant of peace.
That's right. And
we should rest in that. And so last weekend, my wife and I, we went to a local church in the area that puts on this huge production of a live nativity. And it's really cool. It's a drive-through too, by the way. It's just, there's a lot going on, but like you drive through it and you stop, you roll down your window. There's a speaker that's reading the scripture, and then you move on to the next point that reads the next section of scripture. And like, I was just sitting there, you know, my daughter's like out the window, like looking, it's kind of raining because it's, you know, Evansville. And she's just so like sucked into the whole thing. And of course, I'm not sure how much she was getting or how much she wasn't, but I was telling my wife, the Christmas story of the Word that became flesh and dwelt among us has become one of those mundane church stories.
Yep.
And it shouldn't. When you really think of how radical that belief is, that doctrine of the Word that became flesh, that God dwelling in the form of man was. Because all other gods of that time were all about power, were all about self-service. It was all might makes right. And instead, you have the God of the entire universe becomes flesh, dwells among us, and you know, born around all a bunch of animals in a humble beginnings and serving people, and that his entire ministry is a ministry of service.
Yeah. And
it really kind of challenges the status quo of its day. It really does. That is the heart of God is a heart of love and peace and service. And
honestly, that's one of the reasons that I personally, okay, and many will disagree with this, and this is fine. I don't think this is a first tier issue, but I don't hold to any Christophanies. Say that correctly. Because Christology is very different than Christophany.
Yes.
I don't hold to any Christophanies, which is an Old Testament appearance of Jesus. Okay. Because I believe that there are many other wonderful explanations for them. And yet also I think that they lessen the miracle of the incarnation. So when John says, and the Word became flesh and dwelt, I think that's one thought, right? Now, I haven't looked at that in the Greek to say, oh, no, it could be blah, 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 blah. Someone could probably tear me apart on that article. That's my personal belief, okay? I do believe that he was pre-existent, co-eternal, you know, all that, as the logos, the logic, the mind, the word, right? And then I believe that at the incarnation, that word that was a miracle became flesh and dwelt. One thought, go a little English mode here, one compound sentence there, right?
Right.
But it's one thing. It's not the Word became flesh and then 4,000 years later and dwelt. At this one miraculous moment, the Word became flesh and God with us. God dwelt. He tabernacled among us in flesh.
Right. And so, to the Christophanies point, because I can always see somebody freaking out. I always, like, every Christophany I've ever heard, it always leaves me squinting a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just because I want to be careful not to read scripture anachronistically, where I'm trying to see things that are there that are not.
Exactly.
And so some of them seem more plausible than others. Like, you could be like, oh, I can kind of see where you're coming from on that. Other times I'm like, okay, what?
There are a few, but This is where I really love the teaching of Tom Bradford. Is he's like, we got to be careful not to put God in a box, because my introduction to Christophanies was, anytime you see a human form of God, it's Jesus in the Old Testament. And I'm like, and Tom Bradford comes in, he's like, okay, we got to be careful, because we think God is the spirit and the spirit is like this thing that lives in us and the son is the flesh. But yet we see, if you read the scripture literally, you see the bush, you see God appearing, the Father appearing as a man to Abraham. You see him being the death angel, which, we always think of Prince of Egypt, right? With the green smoke. It doesn't say that God sent the death angel. It says that God came down and dwelt this judgment. And, then we see that God was the fire and the cloud of smoke leading Israel through the wilderness and defending them at the Red Sea. So what Tom Bradford is basically saying is we have to be careful not to put God in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I thought about that, I was just like, you know what? Personally, I really love this concept that this is the moment, a perfect incarnation, that he wasn't this kind of pseudo man that would appear and disappear and appear and disappear. This was the moment that the very mind, the purpose, the plan, slain from the foundation of, all these things that we know was this plan for us, the plan of God for us, happens in this one beautiful moment when he becomes true flesh. So that, again, that's my opinion. I'm not going to sit here and argue with someone over it and say you're wrong. But I think we have to be careful not to put the Father in a box. And I think we do that. And not to circle back to the atonement, but, I have found that people's view of the atonement tends to affect their view of the Father.
Absolutely.
And when I'm going to make a very generalized statement. So, as what you always say on the church split, if the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. When you hold to a very harsh, we'll please Jordan Ferrier here, VPSA, vicarious penal substitutionary atonement view, it's very hard to separate the Father from this harsh, judgmental, angry, abusive person. Now, you would never call him that, but in your heart, that's how you view him. He's impossible to please. But the Son steps in and blocks you from that. He's that other parent, if you will, or that sibling who steps between you and the abusive Father. And you would never call God that. But how often do we find that those people who hold to that are loving the Father? No, they're loving Jesus. They're praising Jesus. But 9 times out of 10, they're not too thrilled with God the Father.
And well, it definitely has implications. I mean, that's the thing, is that, and a lot of times when you start bearing out what some of those conclusions are, it makes people very uncomfortable, because either they have cognitive dissonance and they start realizing that, that might be actually true, or they just do not necessarily fully track. So that's why, we're talking about the atonement has become so important.
Into the renovation aspect of it is, how many people have you personally interacted with that part of the reason that they're deconstructing is their view of God?
Christy Burke. Christy Burke is a very, very, very popular atheist TikToker, and that is exactly what she does. And even her view of the atonement, Brian and I are going to be doing a response to her here soon. And even her view of the atonement is because of something like a very harsh critical VPSA mixed with some voluntarism and other things. And once she has those combined, then she saw it and was like, oh, this doesn't work, because she doesn't know of another view. So we see this happen all the time. So that's why it is important to be able to wrestle those issues and maybe perhaps study them a bit deeper to have better understandings, because we don't need to vindicate God, but we definitely need to vindicate our view of God.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I hold to what I call the redemption model, combined with Christus Victor and Ransom Theory and some of the lesser ones. But all right, we have talked in circles on this topic. So I'm going to ask just a fun question. We'll try to spend the rest of this. Will and I both have family stuff going on this afternoon because it's 2 days before Christmas. So let's talk Christmas traditions. What is a Christmas tradition from your childhood that you love, but you have not brought into your family?
That's a good question. So we didn't have a ton of Christmas traditions as a family.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it had to do with all the drama we freaking had. But one of the things that we always did that I do not do is my dad, before we'd open presents, would always read Luke 2.
Okay.
And so he'd read Luke 2, and then we'd open presents. And of course, us kids were losing our freaking minds because all we wanted to do was tear into the presents. That's one of the reasons why I have not brought it into the adulthood, because I already know you can read Luke 2 and try to make the main thing all day long. But if you have kids in the room, they are not paying attention to that. Your best bet is probably to open the presents and then over lunch, then discuss the reason for the day or whatever.
Well,
But
say my dad did that too. And as a kid, I struggled to pay attention, but now I look back and I still remember some of the lessons he taught. And that's something we do. And it's funny to watch how my dad is like, y'all are going to hear this enough at church, and you're probably going to do it in your own home. We're not doing it. So he doesn't do it anymore with the grandkids, but he leaves that to us as the parents to do. My father-in-law, I know he did it one year. I don't know if they've done it every year when everyone's together, but I do love reading. Now, something parallel to that I personally love doing, and I haven't done this with our family because I have toddlers, right? I've got a 5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. I love reading this transformed the Christmas story for me in the CJB. Reading Luke 2 in the Christian Jewish Bible, like, because of the way they do the naming and all of that, like, it was a whole different experience. It was like all of a sudden you went from reading this story to reading about a place that's far away. I mean, it was like Aladdin, right? In a land far away and all that in Arabian Nights. And so I have always loved, so I will personally read it on Christmas morning in the CJB. I won't do that with my family because my kids would be like, who's Miriam? I thought it was Mary. And because my daughter is like super literal and all that. So maybe in a few years we'll introduce that. One thing that we don't do that we did growing up, my mom actually took this from my dad's mom. She makes this German bread called Stollen. And it's this really dense, sweet bread. It's got candied fruit in it and melted powdered sugar to make a glaze and like almond pieces. Really good. Can't get my wife to make it. That's fine. She likes to make cinnamon rolls, so I'm not going to complain. But we don't do that. That's a tradition we don't do. What is a tradition from your childhood that you have brought into your home now that you're a parent?
So one of the things that we always did as kids was we always opened our stockings on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
And we always had a few gifts in there. And one of the things I've always tried to do, and one of the things that we always had growing up in the stockings, was something to keep you up late and entertain you into the next day.
Okay.
So either would be a movie. So you know, after you get all settled in, then all of a sudden now you're staying up late watching a movie that you really wanted to watch. But nowadays with streaming, that kind of murdered that, which is really annoying.
I still have a DVD player.
I know, but it's like, it's not as special when you open up again. Oh, that's the movie I've been wanting. It's like, oh, I could just pull up Max and hit play. So the other thing, or it'd be a video game, right? Like, you know, the new Star Wars game or something. So that's something I've always tried to bring into, because it's so much fun because there's nothing going on. So you can stay up late and eat the junk food from your stocking and just go do something fun with your friends and family, and usually some sort of party game. Now, what I've done now is what I'm doing is, because video games now are mostly digital. Like, for example, Spider-Man 2 that recently dropped, the only way to get a hard copy of it was to pre-order the game. Otherwise, it was only digital in the PlayStation Store. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So it's becoming more and more difficult to even get physical games to do that with. So physical media, more and more difficult to get. So now I've gotten into, I'm determined to keep my tradition. So now I bought a really cool, fancy, like, a tabletop board game. Nice. And that is going to be what it is. And I'm like, this is more interactive anyway. So no matter what, I want to have something that keeps us up late to be able to entertain us into the next day after we put the kiddo down or whatever. And the kid, when she's older, she can play with us. The other tradition we have always kept is not going anywhere.
Okay.
We don't go anywhere on Christmas. We stay home, and it's almost like forbidden to go somewhere. We've gone a few times out. And that was like Brian Bodie, my co-host. One of the traditions that he had was they called it their tradition was called Christmas movie Christmas movie marathon. And what they did,
no, I'm just kidding.
no, they'd go to the theater.
Okay.
And they would get up early, go to the movie theater, and the first movie playing, they don't even pay attention to what it is. They buy the ticket, they go in and they sit down at whatever movie it is. They don't watch any trailers or nothing and just sit there, watch the movie. Once that one's done, they go out, get more snacks and drinks. The next movie on the timeline, they go see that, and they just like blitz the movie theater all day.
Oh,
But it's just funny because it's just you're getting whatever you're getting. So there's been a few times
really good, or it could be really bad.
Yeah. Oh no. And it's been great because they'll tell you about their wonderful and horrible experiences. But then I've joined them like once for a movie. Like I'll be like, oh, you guys are going to a movie. Okay. Well, this movie's playing at 3:00. I will go to the movie with you. And I've done that like twice, I think, but it didn't feel right because I was like, this isn't my Christmas. This is your Christmas at this point. So what we do is we stay home and we don't cook a fancy meal. Like, certain people like to go crazy on Thanksgiving. Well, we do that. We do Christmas. We do all the Thanksgiving stuff and all that. But at Christmas, the day all weekend long, like my wife is doing it right now, is that we make all the Chex Mix. We get like all the cheese and crackers and like we cut up salami and pickled bologna. Yes, pickled bologna. It's a Midwest thing you want to understand. Anyway, but it's actually super good if you like salty vinegar stuff. Like it's really delicious. But if you like pickles or salt and vinegar chips,
I'm not a pickle guy, but I do like things that have that like flavor. Like Chick-fil-A sandwiches have pickle in them. People don't know that. Like I don't eat the pickle, but like the breading has pickle. Yeah. And I love salt and vinegar chips. So like I will try things that have a pickle marinade. Like a light flavor to it, but
and pickled bologna, like I can eat it just straight, but because again, I'm a Midwest guy, so it's a big thing. Like up in Michigan, they are crazy. Like there's just jars of it, and people bring it on fishing trips and stuff. But here it's like you chop it up, you put on crackers with the cheese, like your goat cheese, and you do that, and it's super good. And so then we do like pigs in a blanket, and we do all these like little things that you could like put on your party foods. And then like my wife will make the dessert. I don't know the name of it besides we call it but white trash, which is just hilarious of a name. So we could do all that and we just leave the spread out all day. We have like a little bar of all the drinks, and all day long you just graze and you have a good time. And it
sounds like much less stressful because you do all the work beforehand and then you're not cook and clean that.
And the whole point of Christmas is if Jesus Christ brought peace on earth, I'm gonna have peace on earth for a day. I ain't doing nothing.
I love it.
It's like the ultimate Sabbath.
I may steal that one. Well, growing up, we did something similar. We didn't do the stockings, and there was a very key reason why. We did a present, and it was usually like whatever aunt or uncle sent us something, or maybe one of the grandparent presents, right? We would open that on Christmas Eve, and then we were sent to bed. Okay. Because we had a wood burning fireplace. Mom and Dad, we would get that going. We burned all our wrapping paper. So we'd open a present, get to play with it a little bit.
That's brilliant. I have a fireplace now. I am doing that.
It's absolutely awesome. It's so much fun. That's probably part of the reason my little brother's a fireman now. But so we would do that. And then Mom and Dad would send us all to bed. And that's when they would do their Christmas. So that was kind of a date night at home for them. They'd keep the fire going. They'd watch a movie. They would eat crab. That was the one time a year they got crab, and they would eat that. That's when they packed the stockings, right? And so they would fill them up on Christmas Eve, and then they would open their presents to each other. So it was kind of like a little date night, and they didn't have to do it in front of all the kids. And then so we all went to bed. I'm assuming that's all that happened. I'm not going to go any farther.
Big doubt.
Yeah. So then Christmas morning, we'd wake up and we'd read the Christmas story, and they would just focus on the kids, the stuff we got each other, whatever other presents we had from extended family, and then ours. And then we always because you had to save the best for last. So we always saved Mom and Dad's present to us for last. There's a weird thing that us kids just did. So now it's kind of funny. Like we try to do Christmas ourselves on Christmas Day. So my family, my side, have decided to limit all the insanity and the infighting that happens when you're married. We do Thanksgiving and Christmas like on the first weekend of December sometime, right? December 2nd, this year. Yeah, it was December 2nd. So I got back from Romania on December 1st, went to my parents' house December 2nd, and had Thanksgiving, Christmas. And then my in-laws, because Sarah, my wife, is number 3 of 5. So when the older kids got married, they were both in the military. Everybody was fighting for family time. They just said, you know what? We're going to do our Christmas on Christmas Eve. That's when we do our family Christmas. That way no one has to fight about who gets to spend Christmas with who. So they just like took that. That was their thing. So we always spend Christmas Eve now with my in-laws, which leaves Christmas Day for us, which has been absolutely awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So now, kind of like you, we're not going to do anything. We get to stay home. We get to chill. Typically our parents are like, look, if you want to be here, be here. My brother-in-law is still in the military, is coming in from Virginia. We're going to spend tomorrow with them and then Christmas Eve with them. And I'm really excited. I love spending. Oh, we have a couple of viewers. It's showing live. This is exciting. I'm going to switch over to the comments and see if anyone said anything. If you're watching this, comment, say hi, tell us some of your Christmas traditions. This will be fun. So yeah, but now, so one of the traditions that from my childhood that we still do is, and we're actually going to do it tonight, we go out and look at Christmas lights. We just get in the car and drive.
We do the same thing.
Drive through things. Those cost money. We don't do that. We're cheap. But we lost a viewer. I shouldn't have told him to comment. Stage fright. But yeah, so tonight it's really fun. So about a year ago, we moved into Gallatin, Tennessee, which is just north of Nashville. It's kind of like a suburb. And one of the local banks on their Facebook page, they always put out where you can find the Christmas lights, and they build your tour. So if you pre-plug the address for both Gallatin and Hendersonville, they will tell you the closest route to circle around, right? So that you get the perfect thing. If someone has synchronized their playlist to like their lights to music, they tell you the radio station to tune to. Like they do it all for you. So you just get in the car, program it on your maps, plug in all the stops, and just go. And it's awesome. So that's what we're doing tonight. And Sarah's actually making some chicken to take with us. And she makes a really good. Plugging my wife's cooking because I'm going to make everybody jealous and none of you can have it. We lost our other viewer. Man, I really shouldn't have told people to comment.
It's fickle. People come and go. You're good.
But yeah, she's making fried chicken right now for us to just take in the car and go. And this will be Hannah's first year to really like see the lights. So she's excited. So that's one of the things that we do every year.
So we've done that throughout the month. So just like last weekend we did the live nativity, but we also drove around. Here they have a Google Maps where it's all marked.
Oh, nice.
Like if there's 1,000 more lights, this is what's on the Google map. If there's 1,000 or less lights, this is what's on the map. If it's
they probably have a gauge from a satellite to tell you.
So, but we want, and Ellie just loves it. It is a lot of fun. There's also a guy by our house that their house is excruciatingly well decorated. And then there's a big Santa sleigh. And there's a guy who looks like Santa who sits in the Santa sleigh and he waves at people as they drive by. He's there from like 7 to 9 at night, like throughout the weeks and stuff. Then sometimes he has gifts with him and like little tiny gifts and he hands them out to the kids. And it's just like, and that's the best part about like this time of year. And it's one of the things I feel like in many ways nostalgia is difficult because you always want to recapture that feeling that you had as a kid, but it's hard to recapture that feeling as a kid. And it's cool just to see how many people are trying to find ways to at least give those kids that experience. Right. Absolutely. So I see my kid, how excited she is the more I'm putting presents out and she's just getting like, oh, what is this? And she's so excited. I'm like, that right there is super neat because I will never be as excited about Christmas as I was when I was a kid. Yeah. But it's cool to instill that into your own child.
My 18-month-old goes to bed before my 5-year-old, obviously. And so my wife would wrap her presents before putting the 5-year-old to bed. And at one point she goes, Mom, why don't I have any presents under the tree? And so Sarah, of course, very wisely answered, because I can't wrap them when you're here. So lots of fun. I totally get that.
Oh, you just brought up a good question. Do you tell your kids about Santa or do you not?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, neither do I.
I don't, and I'm not judging anyone that chooses to do that. I don't want to deal with the whole eventual, oh, by the way, Santa's not real, we've been lying to you. And then they look and say, well, what about God? My child's hyper literal. She drafted a letter to Amazon asking for a bunk bed instead of to Santa, because she knows we want to get a bunk bed because my child's trying to start climbing out of her crib. We're going to be moving toward a double bed soon. So yeah, there's a note on our fridge that in her handwriting says, to Amazon, bunk bed. And it's spelled wrong. It's absolutely adorable. And I was like, babe, we need to get her to actually write this letter and mail it in and see if we can get a free bunk bed.
That's hilarious.
She absolutely does not believe in Santa. And I'm not judging anyone. I've just, probably because of my thing in apologetics, and I was never told Santa was real. I was told, hey, he represents the spirit of the season. He's a fun fictional character like Batman, right?
Right.
So just to try, and I think that's a good approach. And that's one Sarah and I both very early agreed on. Keep the real, keep the fictional.
Yep. We do the same thing. Now, what are do you have some go-to favorite Christmas movies? I'm
a Grinch.
You're a Grinch? Like as in you are a Grinch, or you're a Grinch guy?
Yes. I don't enjoy the music. I got burned out on it because like we had 7 hymns that we sang the entire Christmas season. And when you sing 3 songs Sunday morning, 2 songs Sunday night, and 3 songs Wednesday, it gets very repetitive for the 4 weeks between Christmas and Thanksgiving. So I don't like the Christmas songs that I get burnt out on them. I've heard a few recently that are like some fresh new ones. I'm like, okay, I get this. This is fun. So I've enjoyed going back through some of the claymation stuff with my daughter. But at the end of the day, like my wife watches Elf every year and I enjoy watching it once. We watch White Christmas once. I tell my joke about them remaking Holiday Inn with all the music at cut time and renaming it Holiday Inn Express every year. And it's tacky as can be. Because all the remakes, everyone's like, can't they come up with something new? So then I'll throw out something like, oh, did you hear they're remaking the old Christmas movie Holiday Inn, and they're just using the exact same script but all the music's in cut time. I'm like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, they're calling it Holiday Inn Express.
So dumb.
I posted that on Facebook and someone goes, tell me you're sleep deprived without telling me you're sleep deprived. So yeah, it's a terrible joke.
Even Oh Holy Night, you don't like Oh Holy Night?
I love Oh Holy Night with all my heart. And I've always wanted to sing Oh Holy Night, and I always got passed over for singing Oh Holy Night. And to me, Oh Holy Night should be one of the most beautiful Christmas songs there is. Like, I love I grew up in Southern Gospel. I love to this day the David Phelps arrangement because he's so bombastic. It's huge. It's amazing. And the church I was at before the one I just left, they always got the guy who sang country music to sing it. And it was so unemotional. Like, and I enjoy country, right? Don't get me wrong. And this guy has a wonderful voice, great talent. But like, Oh Holy Night, like, should be huge and dynamic. And it was just.
Well, it's also a very classically written song.
Yeah. So
which means you need to have that level of.
Is one of my all-time favorite Christmas songs. I do enjoy it. But
all right, so you were telling
congregational, that was a special. So I've never gotten to sing Oh Holy Night aside from being in the car.
So that's depressing. But okay, so
now you know I'm a Grinch.
So yeah, I guess so. So movies for us, Elf, of course, because Elf is just ridiculous.
Die Hard.
But Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I will die on that hill. The biggest, I think my favorite Christmas movie is A Christmas Story. That movie, oh my goodness, it is hilarious. It is by far the greatest Christmas movie of all time. It is so funny. It's all about like seeing Christmas through the eyes of a child.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous. And it's very much like reminiscent of like the 70s and the 80s. And it's just,
yeah,
it's great.
It's like, Napoleon Dynamite. I can quote from it, but I haven't actually seen it.
Wow.
And in terms of Napoleon Dynamite, I tried to watch it and I felt it was akin to watching SpongeBob. I felt dumber the longer I watched it and I just turned it off.
Yeah, well, so I am a firm believer that the only time anyone should ever watch Napoleon Dynamite is with a bunch of friends and lots of drinks. And then it's fantastic. Otherwise, it's just, yeah, probably stay away. But yeah, so A Christmas Story is my all-time favorite. I just find it hilarious. There's so many good, great little one-liners. They looked at me like I had lobsters coming out of my ears. Like just so many.
The one I know is I said the queen mother of all cuss words. F dash dash dash.
Oh, fudge. Only I didn't say fudge.
Where did you hear that word? I couldn't rat out my old man, so I said the first name that came to mind. Schwartz. So yeah, I haven't seen it, but I can quote bits and pieces.
You really do need to watch it because it's not just a funny Christmas movie; it's just a funny movie. And I think that's why I like it so much, because even though it's like Christmas in theme, it's really just a competently funny movie.
Yeah.
And Elf is just because if it's a Christmas theme, but of course it's a Will Ferrell movie. So if you like Will Ferrell stuff. Although Will Ferrell for me is strong hit and miss, I have to be in the right mood for the ridiculousness of it. But
I've got several of his that I love, and some that I'm just like,
I know I'm the same way.
Really raunchy. So yeah, and I aside from Elf, I don't think I ever watch his movies around my kids.
Yeah, so there's that. It's a Wonderful Life. We watched that one always growing up. That was one of our Christmas traditions.
It's a Wonderful Life.
But I'm not gonna lie, it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm sure it was one of those ones I don't hate the movie. It's just one of those ones that I know for its time it was incredible.
Yeah.
And so therefore I respect it for that. But also it's not the thing that when I think Christmas, I get all nostalgic about.
Yeah.
See, I was raised in all the claymations, the Grinch cartoon. So that is more likely to get me more nostalgic because that's what I was raised on.
Yeah. Love it. Well, let's transition because we only have a few minutes left. I know you got to get going. I got to get going. But let's talk New Year's. What do you have? Any big announcements or plans that you can share about your plans for the church split?
New Year's.
Have you thought about it?
Not much. Well, there are some things. I mean, I guess there are some things. One, we are going to continue to be doing the content like what we're doing, where Brian and I are both doing our own separate content, while also we're going to try to do live streams about every Monday night. We might change nights. There's something I kind of want to be involved in on Monday nights, but needs to work for Brian's schedule. So until then, I'm recording with Brian on Monday nights. And so we're going to keep doing that. We also recently started issuing shorts. So certain people who don't like to deal with our 1 hour content. What?
Like basketball shorts?
No, like YouTube shorts.
Okay.
So we're doing that. I have wanted to get more involved on TikTok, but that just hasn't happened. I actually think
like that's like the hill that's like, oh, your Will's involved. Oh no, he's not. And you keep popping up on my feed, and then you're gone, and then you're up, and then you're gone. And you need to follow me back so I can send you funny videos that I find, even if you're not doing content.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I
message you unless you follow me. It's a weird thing.
That is weird.
Because I can send other people things that I'm pretty sure don't follow me.
I swear I just need to give you my TikTok login and just let you make TikToks for this church split.
Don't do that. I don't make TikToks. I just watch them.
See, I don't. I loathe. So you have to understand, I hate TikTok and YouTube shorts and reels and all of it. Like I don't like that. I don't like that level. I don't like that kind of content. It doesn't.
It's my unwind. So aside from like you and the church split or you are the church and alternate media, I follow a couple other theological stuff. And then I follow like the older millennial. He's really good. Couple other people who are like pushing back against leftist news culture. And then other than that, it's like comedy stuff and magic tricks.
See,
Card
okay,
tricks.
that's funny.
Yeah.
No, so Brian already knows this. One of my big things that I do to unwind, like my content is either all theology, philosophy, politics, or it's like gaming. Yeah. So I watch a lot of like ranking videos and analytics on different weapon types and for certain video games. It's just like that's my unwind. We'll be doing some of that. But my biggest thing that I will be working on is I will be starting my master's program and to jump into a doctorate. I've already talked to a seminary this last week about it. I'm friends with some of them there. And so I do plan to do that. So I will see how much it impacts my content as far as, because obviously bandwidth is a thing. So my biggest goal is I want to get all of that so that way I can produce the type of content that I want to produce and also have credentials that back it up. I might be switching seminaries. I've got my undergrad through Trinity College of Bible Theological Seminary. I have my theology degree there with Braxton Hunter and Jonathan Pritchett. Love those guys. And I might be switching seminaries, not because I have anything against them. Actually, it's something I like. I was planning on going there throughout the whole thing, but I've been told I should diversify my resume. So I'm looking at joining Covenant Theological, not the one that most people think of, but one with Dr. Will Ryan and actually Matt Bouzakis. And there's discussion, let's just say, on my possible future with them on how I could also be of service. So there's I have some exciting things going on more in my personal life, I could say, but I'm still trying to figure out if I want to do my master's fully through Trinity, or if I want to do my master's at Covenant and then do my PhD at Covenant.
That's great.
By the way, Covenant is probably my future. So that's kind of more of my thing. Like that, I don't have, and then I want to get the book out. Like that's the other thing is I just want to get the book out. Like
finish the book before you go back to school. Otherwise, it's going to get put on the back burner.
I shoot half that book. The book that where it's at now, I did while I was at school. I was more productive working on that when I was busier.
Well, it'll probably make a good master's thesis. So
it's actually literally what they were saying. Like, you could probably publish this as a thesis, right? You're probably right.
Cool. Well, for us, we're taking next week off, so there will be no episode between Christmas and New Year's, and we're going to try to hit the ground running. Learned quite a bit. For those who don't know, we actually did all the recording with the exception of this episode, which is live, and our Hanukkah special. We pre-recorded every single one of those, except for some of the sermons, in the month of September. We had such a great response, and then I was looking like we're going to be out through March, so we ended up going weekly. We've got some incredible interviews that I'm working on lining up. I am going to wait on producing the content until after New Year's, so we may go live, or I may record something New Year's Day and post it on Tuesday. We'll see. This is something I may reach out to Will and a few other people for help on, but I think a good avenue for Renovating Faith to get into would be debate reviews. And we may do those more on a live format like this. I think I'd love to do more of these. This has kind of been fun. Hopefully we'll get a little more engagement. But I think that'd be good. Talk about some things where Christians and atheists are going against, call out the logical fallacies, call out some of the bad information, the straw men, things like that, and correct some things and help people really begin to work through the voices that the world is throwing at them. We've got more testimonies coming up. We're working through a few people. We've got some people that have expressed interest in coming on. So I'm excited about what 2024 holds for Renovating Faith. We're going to hit the ground running. We're going to call it season 2 and shift some things. But these last 17 episodes have been a lot of fun, a lot of stress, but I'm excited to see what God's got in store. So
absolutely. Well, I mean, and this sort of thing takes time. I mean, you got to figure out what your niche is, what you're good at, what you're not. And Brian and I mean, it took us, we changed the format of the show continually for the first 2 years. Yeah. And we were just constantly trying to be like, okay, what do we think about this? Let's try that. Let's try that. And now we kind of have a thing that we do, and it works out really well for us.
And technically you just shifted again because you moved and it's not the same, but it's good, and I'm excited for y'all, and I'll try to catch up and stay current.
It's a lot of content now. I know, but that was part of the thing is that we wanted the YouTube algorithm to, unfortunately it is what it is, but it rewards a lot. It rewards content, but I am one guy and I cannot do 3 videos a week, and neither can Brian. So, but if we divide and conquer, we can definitely produce more content. So that's what we're trying to do.
I've got a full-time job. I've got 2 kids who are super high energy, both of them. And, doing this plus trying to learn and stay caught up on everything. And I'm nowhere near as disciplined in my time as you are. So I would love to do more content, but I need to make sure I'm not putting my family on the back burner. And we are going through a transition. You know some of this. We're trying to get back into student ministry. And I actually, on the note of college, I talked to my wife the other day because she pointed out a school. I'm in a process where it turns out the school I got my degree from may have done some shady things. And so I may be able to get all of those loans like dropped completely. And if I can do that, that's both my bachelor's and my master's, then I'm probably going to go for an apologetics degree, like a bachelor's in apologetics, maybe with a minor in either student ministry or in counseling.
Dude, just go at that point, just go to Trinity. They probably have the best apologetics program around for what you're looking for.
Yeah, there's one that Frank Turek recommended that is highly tied to the SBC, which is where I'm currently at, and where I'll probably seek employment if I'm able to transition into full-time student ministry. And I've thought about that. I've thought about Trinity. I've looked at that. It just kind of, we're looking at a lot of different things, and it'll depend on what I can do with schedule. But I think for employment, it'll be nice to already be enrolled rather than like saying, yeah, I'm willing to go back to school. Like if you're already enrolled or have the degree, I think that'll look better on my resume. So
the best part about Trinity is that it actually is really good for people like in your shoes.
Yeah.
Where it's very flexible and it's very much at your own pace and in the best way. It's really good. I definitely recommend it. And their methodology is great. And everyone knows the name of Trinity College of the Bible Theological Seminary. Is actually a pretty well-known seminary, especially for its size, because I think they have like 1,200 students right now. So it's not like ginormous, but it's pretty well known. Yeah. And very well respected as far as an apologetics degrees, mainly because they're one of the few places that have a good apologetics program.
Yeah.
And so plus you have like actual apologists who are professors and teachers there.
Well, I'm looking at that one. And then there's one that Frank Turek is actually tied to. And that's the other one that I'm looking at. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's not Southeastern because that's an SBC seminary, but it's similar to that. So I have to look it up and I'll send it to you because it's interesting. Like they have a online bachelor's in apologetics degree. So I'm really interested in that. Viola is another one that has
Biola University.
Yeah, seems to have a pretty good. And I know like the people at Mama Bear have got their degrees through there. So
Biola is pretty popular for apologetics.
Yeah. Trinity's on my short list of places I would like to go, but I've got to get my student debt cleared up first. And
makes sense.
Especially in this economy, I don't want to live in an apartment forever. So I would like to get to where we can afford a house. Debt to income ratio is a big thing on that.
Yes.
So getting the debt cleared up is nice.
Absolutely.
So, well, on that note, I know you've got family to get back to, and we are already a little over time. So I just want to say for those of you who are hopefully not feeling lonely this Christmas or going through heartbreak, but you're going through this renovation process, as always, I want to say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. May he turn his face toward you and give you peace.
Renovating-faith.creator-spring.com. Please join us again next time on the Renovating Faith podcast.